Well, kids, my birthday is tomorrow. I will be a whopping 47 years old. And as I sat back reflecting this morning in my journal every morning, about what I learned this year. And I've realized that I learned some very hard lessons. Of course, I got my Autism and ADHD diagnosis this year, and I'm sure that had huge bearing on a lot of the reflection that I've done. But since my birthday's coming up and I came to these revelations, I figured I would make a video and share some important life lessons that I've learned as they relate to both my autism and my ADHD, and just trauma recovery, burnout recovery, and becoming more myself that I've learned. So grab a seat, grab some coffee, grab some tea, and we'll chat a bit. Now, of course, I should introduce myself first. If you don't know me, my name is Heather. I am a late diagnosed autistic and ADHD human, and I make videos about my life experiences and all kinds of other things that interest me because, well, I'm all over the place, and that's kind of my charm. So again, welcome. I appreciate your likes, your subscription, comments, anything that you do to interact. You have no idea how much it helps the channel and helps me grow. So thank you in advance. So one of the things I've realized along the lines of hard life lessons that I learned in this past year is you can want to do something with your whole brain, and if your nervous system isn't ready to do it, you can't. And I guess that goes along with the lines of burnout recovery. And I want to make a statement that I guess is kind of a bold statement, and I don't like making across the board statements about anything really, because I think so much of our experiences are personal, and how we experience the world and how we relate to the world, it is so personal based on, you know, your childhood experiences and everything. But when it comes to burnout particularly, but I think burnout in general, but particularly neurodivergent burnout, I don't think we ever recover. I don't think there is any recovery from burnout. And what I mean by that is really semantics, I guess. The word recover means to go back to a previous state. You have an illness, it goes away, your body needs to recover, and then you get back up to speed, running at the speed that you were before you got sick, and that is recovery. But I don't think when it comes to burnout that we actually recover. And the reason I say that is because I don't think you can ever go back to what you were before the burnout, because that was clearly unsustainable. You couldn't keep up with that. Your body couldn't, your nervous system couldn't, your brain couldn't. You burnt out because demand exceeded ability. Usually chronically, demand exceeded ability. And I think when you hit that point, the only way to come out of it is to realize that the demands were too much for the ability, and change your life to where you're doing things that are not creating so much strain and so much hardship and so much work for your body, for your brain, for your nervous system. You can't go back to what you were before. I can't ever go back to who I was before I hit burnout. I can't be that constant caretaker who did everything for everybody and took care of all my sick relatives and managed to work a full-time job plus overtime, plus raise children, plus do all of these. I can't do that anymore. Not just because of the skill regression and the things that now I'm just incapable of doing, but because I have realized that that was so harmful to me. And to even try to go back to who that person was is of no benefit to me. That's not a recovery. That's slapping a Band-Aid on something, on a broken leg, and trying to hobble around like it's not broken. That never heals. You can't keep doing it the same way. And that is an important realization that I came to. That there is no recovery. There's only realization and change and recognizing what your actual capabilities are. Because you are capable. You're capable of so much. I'm saying that to myself and to you. You're capable of so much. Probably so much more than you think you are. But when you have put yourself in a hole because you are constantly trying to meet the demands of others and disregarding the demands of your own body, of your own nervous system, of your own emotional systems, that's not going to help anybody. And it's going to make you feel less capable. It's going to make you feel like you can't do anything because you can't do the things that all these people expect from you. But is what's being expected of you healthy? And that's really the point that you have to come to, is just understanding, what is a healthy balance for me? What are my, especially as a neurodivergent, what are my capabilities? And what are my things that I need assistance with? What are my, and I don't want to say disabilities, but what are my disabilities? What are the things that I need a helping hand with? I need community. I do. Everybody does. I need help with things. I need to learn how to ask for help with things. And when you're used to doing it all yourself, that seems very, very scary. So that's one important thing I learned. And when I say that you can want to do something with your whole heart and soul, you can want to be able to do something, you feel ready for it. But if your nervous system is not ready for it, it's not going to let you do it. It's going to self-sabotage. It's going to time travel you back to that time when you were a kid and you felt so unsafe and had no one to turn to, and shut you down and put you in freeze state and make you terrified. It's going to take that great new job that gives you so many opportunities, and you're going to end up screwing it up. You're going to call in sick too many times. You're going to, flake out on a big important job that you had to do. That new relationship that you got. You can want it with your whole heart. But if your nervous system still doesn't know how to handle a healthy, reciprocal relationship, it's going to sabotage it. Because it's going to go back to what's familiar. And that's another important thing I've learned. Time travel. Your nervous system will have you time traveling. And you don't even know that's what's going on, but it is. And what do I mean by that? Your nervous system has you time traveling. That sounds kind of woo-woo, right? Like you're just out on the astral plane, traveling around. No. What I mean is, and from a fundamental point of view, and this is a combination of, polyvagal theory, attachment theory, somatics, internal family systems, just rolled into one. But go with me on this, okay? Your nervous system learned how to get its needs met when you were an infant, okay? You were not capable of taking care of yourself when you came out of the womb. Okay. Humans are not horses or calves or whatever. We don't just get up and start running around, doing our own thing as soon as we pop out. We are wholly dependent on another human being to provide for us. And we learn, before we learn language, how to get our needs met. That's the first thing we know. It's the first thing we learn, is how to get our needs met. I'm hungry. Nobody's noticed that yet, so I'm going to cry. I'm tired. Why aren't they putting me down? I'm going to cry. This is how you learn how to get your needs met. And the thing is, you also learn a language before you learn a language from those people that provided that care. And if those people were, say, not consistent at providing that care, you learned that I'm hungry, I'm going to cry. Oh, well, maybe they're not coming this time. And then next time they do come. So you cry again. But then the next time you cry and nobody comes. So you're learning a language of inconsistency, and your nervous system doesn't really know what to do with that. And so it translates that I may die because I need this attention and I'm not getting it. Right? So that's infancy. We haven't even got to childhood yet. All right. So say you're one of those wonderful, lucky people who always had your needs met as an infant. Every time you cried, somebody was there, Johnny on the spot. You got held, you got coddled, you got loved. And that nervous system learned, when I reach out, help is there. Okay. And that's fantastic. That's what they call secure attachment. But then you get into childhood, right? And say as a child, you learn that in order to get that same support and get that need met, whether it's an emotional need or you need food or you need a hug or you need whatever, that you have to do something. It's not just there anymore. And crying doesn't work anymore. And maybe you only get those needs met when you are performing. Okay? So, mom, whoever loves you, whoever takes care of you, only pays attention to you when you've done something worth being rewarded for. Right? When you've done well on a test at school, when you've done what was expected of you in a social situation, when you've performed to a level that they find acceptable, then you'll get that pat on the head, then you'll get that hug. But any other time, maybe you're not getting that need met. And that's another lesson to your nervous system that didn't come through as language, but it came through clearly that I need to perform, to do, to get that need met. Just being is not enough. Or maybe, even worse, you learned that not only was just being not enough, that your version of just being, and again, if you're neurodivergent, there's a very big possibility that this is your story that your nervous system learned, that just being a child, just being that child that you are, was wrong. That you were doing it wrong. Maybe you were corrected for the way you spoke or didn't speak. Maybe you were constantly antagonized about your posture or your appearance or something you said. Maybe you got these negative messages not just from your caregivers, but from other friends, other peers your age, from teachers, from society in general, that you just weren't being right. You weren't doing it right. So your nervous system learned in that situation that I'm not going to get my needs met because no matter what I do, I'm not doing it right. And if I'm not doing it right, then my need for love, my need for acceptance, my need for validation, those things are not going to get met. So I need to do it right. And then you try to figure out what right is. And doing that is what creates that neurodivergent mask. That's how you figure out how to get your needs met. Not just to exist and fly under the radar, but you learn how to get your needs met by being the person that everybody wants you to be, because the person that you are, the kid that you are, just isn't right. You're not doing it right. And I think that creates such a story within us, no matter how it happened, no matter what language you got it in, no matter and you could have had a perfectly wonderful childhood. You could have felt very loved. Maybe you never wanted for anything, but somehow you still got screwed up because somehow you still probably got a message that you weren't worthy of just being loved, of just being valued for who you were as you were. Okay, and I'm not blaming your parents, and if you're a parent, I'm not blaming you because I'm a parent too. We're all just humans. We all learn languages before we learn languages. Our nervous systems learn how to get our needs met, and that's the story that implants itself in you, right? And that's another thing. That's the thing. I think the most pivotal thing that I have learned this year is that when my nervous system is signaling to me, it is dysregulated, that's a signal, that something is wrong, that a need is not being met, that I am not okay, that reaction is coming from a language that I learned before I learned language. It's not my fault that this neurodivergent nervous system I've been gifted with is very active. It's not my fault that as a child, I maybe needed a little more than some other kids might have. And I didn't get that. And so my nervous system learned how to get it for me or how to shut me down so I didn't need it anymore. And that's what I mean by time travel. Because when I'm in that dysregulated state, what I have learned is, at what point did I learn that language? When was the first time? What age me is jumping up into front and center right now? Is it little baby me? That I don't even really remember, but she remembers. Is it 6-year-old me that learned that crying was not going to get me what I wanted? Even though I didn't have words to tell somebody what I wanted or what I needed, that because of the paradigms of parenting of that time frame, crying was a sign that, something's wrong with your kid and you don't pay attention to it and you don't coddle and you don't, that was the paradigm. So that's how I was parented. But my little neurodivergent nervous system, who was crying all the time because she was so overstimulated and she just needed somebody to hold her and she just needed somebody to tell her, it's okay. She learned from that language that I got that was not okay. It's not okay to try to get your needs met. They're not going to get met. And you having that need is a problem. So shut it down. So when I start going into freeze, because that's my common nervous system response, is to shut down, disassociate, freeze, isolate, then I am really time traveling back into that 6-year-old body, into that 6-year-old nervous system that learned I'm not going to get those needs met. I'm going to be told I'm wrong, so I better not even ask. I better shut it down right now, stop everything. So my nervous system says, okay, we shall accommodate. Let's disassociate. And that's what it does. And I think that that's been a super valuable lesson for me. That, of course, that understanding became clearer when I realized, when I learned, and I accepted that I am neurodivergent, I am autistic, I am ADHD, and that my brain and my nervous system perceive things on different levels than many other people do. that my needs as a child were not too much. They weren't, and they weren't wrong. And I wasn't wrong to ask for it in the way that I did, which was the only way my little 6-year-old self knew how to ask for it. I did not have words for it. I just knew I was sad and I was uncomfortable and I was unhappy. And I just needed somebody to tell me that it was okay to be that way and that they would take care of me. And I didn't get that. And while I can't go back and change that, what I can do now is to recognize when that 6-year-old me is jumping in the driver's seat and saying the same things. That we're not going to get our needs met. Doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to happen. You might as well shut down. Don't say a word. Isolate yourself. Nobody's going to understand this. Nobody's going to want to hear it. Just stop now. That those things were what 6-year-old me learned. But I can stop in those moments, as hard as it is, when you are dysregulated, when you are disassociated, when you are shut down, to stop and realize that is 6-year-old me thinking she's not going to be able to get a need met because she is dependent on other people to meet those needs. She can't take care of herself. She's 6. And nobody gave her what she needed. So how was she going to learn how to take care of herself? Other than, you don't get to have those feelings. You don't get to do that. So now I have to stop and realize that 6-year-old me is in charge and she thinks we can't take care of ourselves still. She thinks that we still need somebody else to do that for us. That we're not in charge of our nervous system now. And we are. Does this revelation mean that I never get dysregulated anymore? Of course not. Is this still an ongoing everyday process for me? Of course it is. Will I probably have to work on this every day for the rest of my life? You're damn right I will. But at least now I know, at least I realize, when it's somebody else hopping in the driver's seat and it's not me. When I am literally time traveling, when my nervous system is like, hey, let's go back to being a 6-year-old, or let's go back to being a 14-year-old, or let's go back to being an infant, that I'm not. I'm an adult. I am capable, and I am in control, and friends with my nervous system. And that is another and maybe the most valuable lesson that I have learned this year. Because we hear so much about self-love. And let me tell you, if you are neurodivergent, especially, I'm going to just take a wild leap here and say, most of us who are late diagnosed neurodivergent carry a huge story of shame. That there is something fundamentally wrong with us because of those lessons we learned as a child, that you're just not doing it right. You are not being a person right. Your teachers are telling you, your parents are telling you, your peers are telling you, you're just weird, you're odd, you're not doing it, you're not living up to your potential, you're not doing all the things you should be doing. Whatever messages you got probably created a huge story of shame around who you are. Because here's the thing, guilt is feeling bad about something that you did. And you're like, man, I feel really guilty about that. I should try to repair this. Let me fix it. That is guilt. Shame is I am wrong. I am bad. This is me and me is wrong. And how do we fix that story? Especially when all of the information we have gotten for most of our lives confirms that's the truth. You're not right. You're not doing it right. You're not peopling correctly. And that's a very shameful state to be in. And how do we love something that we're ashamed of? Right? How do you look in the mirror when you are carrying this story of immense shame and probably self-hatred, or at least a strong self-dislike? How do we look in the mirror and go, I love you, you're beautiful, you got this? How do we tell ourselves mantras, repeating the same bullshit over and over again that never sinks in because we don't believe it's true? I can look in the mirror and say, I love you. You're doing great. And as soon as I turn away, go, you dumb bitch. That's my inner monologue all the time. But here's the thing. I don't have to go straight into love myself from hate myself. It can be a slow and titrating process, just like everything else that we learn that we really want to stick with us, right? So how have I done that this year? What steps have I taken? And really, honestly, a lot of this has been very recently for me because I've realized, per the last revelation, that I am disembodied a lot. I am in my head more than I'm in my body. I think that's a very common neurodivergent experience, autistic experience, that we exist within our heads more than we are in our bodies. And one of the things I've done to start befriending myself and my nervous system more is to find ways to put myself back in my body more. And these might sound like silly little inconsequential things. I mean, they probably really do. But I think the older you get, the more you realize that it is the silly little seemingly inconsequential things that have the biggest impact. It's not the big, the aha, this is the thing I've been waiting for my whole life. We very rarely hit those huge pivotal moments. And often it is very tiny, little consistent things that we do that bring us peace. And through doing these tiny little consistent things to put myself back in my body, like at least 15 minutes of yoga in the morning. And even if that looks like just laying on the floor, doing that. I have toe separators, okay? Because I'm stressed out all the time, my toes are like this all day long, whether I realize it or not. So going home and putting those toe separators on and letting the fascia of my feet and my legs relax seems small and inconsequential, but it makes such a huge difference to make my body feel like I am caring for it. I mean, just face mask, silly little things that were sold as self-care. And we're like, oh, that's not really self-care. Well, you know what? Sometimes it is. Sometimes when you can't stand to look at yourself in the mirror, when you hate every single thing about yourself, to take a few moments and go, you know what? Oh, we deserve a face mask today. If that's all we do for ourselves today, then we did pretty good. It's self-care. And that's going to look different for everybody because, again, everybody's early experiences that set up our nervous system and our attachment styles and our internal family systems and everything that happened to you is going to be different, and it's going to give you a different response, and you're going to have different needs and different ways you have to meet those needs. But that's the thing. You have to meet those needs. Because you're not 6-year-old you anymore. You're not 14-year-old you anymore. You're not the child nervous system that was so dependent on somebody else to take care of them that they learned all of these coping skills and these mechanisms and these harmful things that we do to ourselves. You've got to build trust with yourself that you are your own damn friend. And that's something I have never been good at. Befriending myself. So maybe I can't go right away from hate it to love it, but we can be buddies. We can hang out, take it slow, like we're dating each other, you know, like don't jump right into that relationship and fall in love immediately, because eventually you'll find some reason why you don't really love that person and you should have thought it through. Take your time. Get to know yourself again. Get to know, especially if you're late diagnosed neurodivergent, get to know this new version of you, this new season of you. What do we like about her? Him, whatever. What's different that we can start to see, and maybe give ourselves some compassion, maybe understanding now, if you didn't understand this before, that the things that you do to get your needs met are not bad. The things that you have done that may have seemed like they've inhibited you, that they weren't good for you, and you know they're not good for you, but you still can't stop doing them, and you don't know why, and you've gone to therapy, and you've taken the medicine, and you've done the things, and you still can't fix it. Maybe coming to the understanding, there's nothing to fix. You're not broken. That deep shame that you carry around, replacing it a little bit every day with some compassion. I know that I am a very empathetic person and a very compassionate person, and it hurts me to see other people hurt. And I know that not everyone is like this. I understand that. But I think many of us are. And I think if you watch my videos, you probably are. But I'm willing to bet that your highly sensitive, empathetic, empathic self has a very difficult time giving those same things back to you that you would so easily give to somebody else, because you see how badly they need it, but you can't see how badly you need it. And I guess that's the biggest lesson, is befriending myself because I need it. Because there will never be an external source. There will never be a caretaker, a provider, a knight on a white horse, a rescuer. No one's coming to fix it for me. No one's coming to drag me out of this. I've got to befriend myself and show that I can take care of her. I've got to teach that nervous system every day in little ways that I'm there for her, that I will protect her, that I will give her the compassion she deserves. I can do that. So friends, those are just some of the things, the hard but valuable lessons I learned in the age of 46. And I think this is the first time in years, as a birthday approaches, that I can say, I think 47 is going to be better. Because I am going to keep befriending myself and befriending my nervous system and giving her grace and compassion and allowing her to be her whole self without recrimination, without judgment, learning not to expect judgment from other people just because that's the story I got, that I'm not always going to be in that same story. And to maybe stop time traveling so much in 47. You know, I got the diagnosis this year, and of course you're going to start looking back. You're going to start looking back at your childhood and your lived experiences, and oh my gosh, it was autism the whole time. And it was autism the whole time. But it was also a very, very activated nervous system the whole time that was just trying to get its needs met. And maybe it didn't always go about that in the best ways. Maybe it didn't always go about that in the safest ways. Maybe it hurt people along the way. But I forgive forgive that girl that didn't know any better. I forgive that girl that let the 6-year-old jump in the driver's seat and take over because she was just trying to get her needs met and she didn't know how. And going forward, I vow wholeheartedly to take care of her and to let her know that I will meet her needs and I will give her the joy and the safety and the compassion and the understanding and the support and the things that she has craved for so many years and looked for externally for so many years. I'll provide that. So, happy birthday to me, and happy birthday to all the versions of me that I feel like are finally coming together. I just had this vision because I'm very hyper visual of, the multiverse string theory timeline of all those timelines just kind of collapsing. And 6-year-old me and 14-year-old me and 20-year-old me and all of these me's that have been and all of the me's that are going to be and the me right now just coming together and going, it's okay. You don't have to be ashamed of who you are, of what you did, of who you were. No judgment. I love you. And it's going to be okay. And we got this. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me on my birthday insights. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. And I will see you next week. And I hope you join me again for another one of our chats. Thank you.